Good evening, and welcome back to my ASMR channel. I thought, since it's the week of Halloween, we could do a flip through of this art book of one of my favorite games ever, which is the 2015 From Software game Bloodborne. And since it's Halloween, I thought that we could get into the mood with some props, like this beautiful glass of mysterious red fluid. And instead of my Apple Pencil, today we'll be using this quill for our tracing and for our brushing. So, if that interests you, please feel free to sit back, relax, and we'll get started. So this book was actually a gift from one of my oldest friends, and I think my strongest memory with this book is that one day I was feeling really unwell, so I was off work, and I couldn't look at any screens, and I just saw this on the shelf, and I knew that was exactly what would keep me distracted. So I spent the afternoon flipping through and looking at the beautiful official artworks. So, let me take a sip. Cheers. On the front cover, we have, quite simply, the Bloodborne logo, BLOODBORNE. Official artworks. And it's this matte black paper. And on the back, it says Bloodborne Official Artworks. In the terrifying video game Bloodborne, deranged mobs and nightmarish creatures lurk around every corner of a horror-filled Gothic city. Bloodborne Official Artworks collects the hair-raising artwork behind this modern action role-playing classic. Included are character concepts, creature designs, location illustrations, weapons, items, and more. And then we have 3 portraits, I guess, a triptych, is that how you pronounce it? So we have the Hunter's Dream, a hunter in the middle, with long silver hair, and a witch's hat. I'm not sure who this is actually. And then we have the clock tower, which looks like the clock tower from The Hunter's Nightmare. Although I guess that clock tower is also in Yarnum. these buildings distorted, going up into the sky. And here it says, seek pale blood to transcend the hunt. And then a blood splatter. On the left we have another close-up of the hunter and their weapon. And it says, "Oh yes, pale blood. Well, you've come to the right place. Yarnum is the home of blood ministration. You need only unravel its mystery. But where's an outsider like yourself to begin? Easy, with a bit of Yarnum blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract." So here we have the contents page. On the left, we have the artwork separated by area. So you have things like the Hunter's Dream. That's one of the early areas and a place you go back to a lot in Bloodborne every time you want to level up or travel to a new area. We've got, let's see, what are some of my favorites? Bergenworth. Who doesn't love a spooky academy? Forsaken Castle, Kinhurst Castle. That's one of my absolute favorites. It's a haunted Gothic castle in the snow. It's absolutely beautiful. And then of course at the bottom here we have Hunter's Nightmare, Research Hall, and Fishing Hamlet, which are 3 areas from the DLC of Bloodborne, which is a fantastic DLC. I really recommend it. It reveals some really interesting information that was kind of teased throughout the base game, and it has the final boss in Fishing Hamlet is so difficult. It took me hours to do, but I was so satisfied when I finally beat it. So at the bottom it also lists some extras, like arsenal items, chalices, blood gems, trophies. And then, let's see, here we have the artwork index. So this is everything organized alphabetically rather than by area. And up here we have a shot of the Arnhem skyline, and it says, "Good, all signed and sealed. Now let's begin the transfusion. Oh, don't you worry. Whatever happens, you may think it all a mere bad dream." Very Shakespearean. So I think we'll start at the beginning with the Hunter's Dream. And here we have a nice concept art of the Hunter's Lodge underneath the full moon. Okay, so we have on the left Hunter attire. So the hunter has a cap which goes up and flares off into rags, a mask, which is probably really helpful because all of the enemies in Bloodborne spray blood when defeated, so your hunter definitely goes through a lot. white strap for the bag or items. And then their pants or trousers, whatever you want to call them, tucked into reinforcement at the knees, and then boots, which again have some plate over them. And all of this is topped off with a magnificent hunter's coat that billows as they run. Next to them we have the messengers. So the messengers give you items early on, but you can also leave messengers to give messages to other players while you're playing. Although a lot of the time people just use it for cheeky messages, but sometimes it is helpful. On the right here, we have the doll. So the doll is a very important character. You go to her whenever you level up in Bloodborne, and she seems very devoted to you. And she's quite important in all of the endings, but I don't want to spoil that for you just now. So the doll has silver hair. My dog just resettled behind me. I think she's snoozing. So the doll has silver hair underneath a bonnet. And her face is her only skin showing. She has a cape, which is longer than the hunter's. Maybe a cloak or a poncho would be a better description. An overcoat, maybe. And she has a red scarf and a brooch pendant. Brooch, not sure. Pendant. She's got wrist wraps in white. And she's praying in this picture, or at least her hands are clasped together as though in prayer. And you can see her skirt, which goes down below the knees. And her leather boots, which are delicately laced up. And then a view here from the back. So, down here it says, "Hello, good hunter. I am a doll here in this dream to look after you. Honorable hunter, pursue the echoes of blood, and I will channel them into your strength. You will hunt beasts, and I will be here for you to embolden your sickly spirit." So next we have an interior view of the hunter's workshop, which is inside the hunter's lodge, and it's where you go to upgrade your weapons and to insert blood gems into the slots in your weapons, which allows you to add powerful effects. And here we have the storage and the pot or the urn for messengers. You can go to these messengers and buy special outfits from them, like outfits of the enemies you meet or defeat throughout the game when you get special emblems. And then on the right it says here, German. So German is also a very important character. When you first meet him, well, spoilers, but he's bound to a wheelchair, and he doesn't seem to be entirely So here, you must be the new hunter. Welcome to the hunter's dream. This will be your home for now. I am Gurman, friend to you hunters. You're sure to be in a fine haze about now, but don't think too hard about all of this. Just go out and kill a few beasts. It's for your own good, you know. It's just what hunters do. You'll get used to it. Okay, so next up we have Yosefka's clinic. So, funny story about Yosefka. She runs this clinic in Yarnum. And when you first meet her early on in the game, she refuses to let you into the inner sanctum of her clinic because she says she's worried about contamination. But if you come back to the clinic around the midpoint, all of a sudden, she seems quite eager for you to send people along. I didn't actually notice this the first time I played, but it does become quite important. So if you decide to play it, just keep an eye on Yosefka, that's all I'll say. And listen to your gut, listen to your instincts. So here we have the first enemy hunters are likely to meet in Bloodborne, which is the Scourge Beast. So, the Scourge Beast is almost like if you imagine a fantasy werewolf or a giant wolf. It tends to be on all fours like this, but it also rears up and slashes the player. And it's quite funny, and obviously all of From Software's games are quite hard, but Bloodborne especially. So I imagine a lot of people, especially if this is their first From Software game, will actually die to this enemy. I know I did. But it's not all bad, because when you die, you wake up back in the hunter's dream. And then on the right here we have Foreign Attar. So this is what the hunter wakes up in. Because my understanding is in the game, the hunter is traveler into Yarnum. They weren't there in the first place. Central Yarnum, and then a panorama of some of the, I think they're almost sewers, or like the channels that are beneath the main city. It must be a sewer, yeah, because all of the effluent flows into it. But there are some good items down there if you can be bothered running around. And it's also a shortcut to, I've forgotten his name. He's either the first or the second boss, depending on the route you take. Oh, what is his name? I can't believe I've forgotten. We'll have to see as we go on. So on the left we have another page view of the sewers. You can see clothes hanging up to dry. And then on the right we have a large huntsman. So Beasthood and Beast People play a very big role in Bloodborne. And this is an early example of someone who seems to be transformed but still quite recognizably human. Like they're bipedal, up on two legs, they're holding tools or equipment that humans would use. It's quite spooky. And then we have a carrion crow, which, so here, it looks really small. But trust me when I say that in-game, these things are terrifying. They're so big. They charge right at you. they make such a loud noise. They're often like lying flat in the mud or in the grime, so you don't even notice them, and then they jump scare you. And then here we have a rabid dog. Poor thing. Oh, I hope I can remember that character's name soon. So for me, I had tried to get into From Software's games before, like Dark Souls and Demon Souls, but I was never really able to. I just found them so difficult, and I felt like I kept bouncing off. But when I saw the trailer for Bloodborne, I was like, oh my gosh, that visual style is just stunning, I have to play it. So I was lucky enough to actually go to a video game conference in London. It was one of the EGX shows, and they had a playable stand where you could play Bloodborne. And I remember I played it and I was awful, but I fell in love so quickly, and I knew I had to get the game when it came out. So I took a risk. At the time I was a student, so I didn't really have much of an income, but I was like, I need to play this. So I pre-ordered it, and this was my first From Software game, and I absolutely fell in love. I've since gone back and played Dark Souls 1, then I played, which order? I think it was Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and then I played Sekiro when that came out, which is an amazing game as well. So hard, like so hard, and it really doesn't give you tools to cope with the difficulty. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant, and the music was amazing. And the boss, yeah, I could talk about Sekiro. Maybe I'll need to buy a book about Sekiro, and we'll talk about Sekiro another time. I'll just interrupt my story to quickly talk about Eileen the Crow. So in the context of Bloodborne, Eileen the Crow is one of the hunters who actually hunts hunters, because from her perspective, there are hunters that are enjoying the hunt a little too much. So she's trying to essentially quell their bloodlust. But she knows that as she does that, she's at risk of losing herself. And also, unlike the protagonist, Eileen used to be able to go to the hunter's dream, but she's been cut off. So that means if she dies, she's dead. She doesn't get to come back. So there's a lot of tragedy and nuance to her character. And she has a brilliant Northern English accent. It's amazing. And here, as you can see, oh wow, yeah, match for the feather. Eileen has this beautiful, but it is also quite ragged, like feather cape, a really long cape that goes down almost to her feet. And she wears a crow mask, like down here, yeah, you can see it. Almost like a plague doctor would. I think I remember reading, although I don't know if this was like a debunking, but it said that they used to put things in this mask that would smell. I'm not sure it would smell nice so much as smell strong, to cover up the smell of whatever was wrong with the patient the plague doctors were treating. Which is quite grim when you think about it. Oh, this is quite interesting. On the left here we have some early designs, and actually this one definitely looks like at some point she might have been a male character. I think it's a nice change for the best. There's something about Eileen, the way she is, that's just, yeah, that's her. With guess they felt the same way, because that's why they chose her this way. So few hunters can resist the intoxication of the hunt. Look at you, just the same as all the rest. The hunters must die, the nightmare must end. Only I can stop this madness. So yeah, she is a sympathetic, but also quite a tragic character. There's quite a funny gameplay detail with this pig. There's a mechanic in the game called visceral attack, where the hunter will stun the enemy and then, like, punch them. But if you punch the pig from a specific angle, I'll just say it doesn't look great. Okay, so actually I'll tie this back into my story. So after Sekiro, I think the next one I played was probably Elden Ring, which, again, fantastic game. And when Elden Ring's DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, came out, I decided at that point to go and play some of their older games. So I went back and I played Demon's Souls, the PS3 version. And I played Dark Souls 3 and all of its DLC. And I found that one quite frustrating, but by the end I did enjoy it. But all of that, like all that time spent playing all those games, was because of Bloodborne. And because of the Cleric Beast, which was actually the first boss that I found in Bloodborne. Rather than, I've remembered his name, Father Gascoigne. So if you go into the sewers, you can find Father Gascoigne before you fight the Cleric Beast. So as you can see, the Cleric Beast has antlers and quite a, carnivorous muzzle with sharp fangs. He's mostly bipedal, but you can see one arm is elongated and ends in these sharp talons, but the other is engorged and covered in hair, and even bigger than his other arm. And that plays into his attack patterns. As you can see here, his exposed ribcage, almost like the beast within is bursting out. And then his bipedal legs ending in canine paws and a tail. When the hunt began, the healing church left us, blocking the great bridge to Cathedral Ward, as old Yarnum burned to the ground that moonlit night. I'm not sure if you can hear, but it's actually just started to rain outside. So if you can hear that, I hope you find it enjoyable. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. Father Gascoigne. Although this is only his human form, I wonder... maybe they'll come to his beast form. Okay, no, that's interesting. So when you first find him, he is still in this human form, but around halfway through the fight, he transforms into essentially a beast man, and you see exactly what Eileen the Crow is concerned about, where these hunters get too drawn into the hunt and they lose themselves to beasthood. Yeah, here we go, his iconic quote. Beasts all over the shop. My own beast behind me, making some nice sleeping noises. Beasts all over the shop. You'll be one of them, sooner or later. Oh, that's not him. That's the, you find enemies on the street, and they'll say things like, beasts all over the shop, and there's one that's like, this town's finished, and that one always makes me laugh. Forsaken Canehurst Castle. So that's page 148. Here we go. Just gonna have another drink. I'm running low on blood. So, Forsaken Canehurst Castle. Hang on, let me move the candle somewhere nice. There we go. So, Forsaken Canehurst Castle. And we have an exterior shot of the castle. So, to get to Castle Canehurst, you're given a summons, a letter, and you need to present the letter in Hemwick Charnel Lane, which is one of the areas in the game. And when you do, you get picked up by this unmanned carriage with 2 horses. It says here it's called an omnibus. And so the hunter climbs into this unmanned carriage and it takes them off. And they arrive at Forsaken Canehurst Castle. But what's really interesting is when you arrive, you can see it here. When you turn around, the bridge is collapsed. So there's no way the horse and carriage could have crossed. Spooky, huh? So once you get inside, there's this, oh well actually, yeah, let's start outside. So the grounds are frozen over, and there are these bloody mosquito human creatures. They're called bloodlickers apparently. So you need to take care of them and work your way into the castle, where you're greeted with this grand foyer. It says here, the entrance hall, and you can see down here there's a chandelier, a candle stand, and the gate, which is the front door. So inside you'll find the lost child of antiquity, which is like an enemy type, and Cain's servant, which is like a very bent over, wizened old man. This is quite interesting. 2 arms, but then a hand holding one of the arms, and holding another hand. So that's not good. So as you travel throughout Canehurst Castle, or Castle Canehurst, you reach this library. Beautiful grand library with tall shelves and ladders and a reading table in the middle. And it's full of these ghostly women. And they're wailing, and some of them have knives. And as you approach them, they cry, and then they suddenly raise the knife. So spooky. This is the flag of Canehurst. Wow, okay. So this here is concept art for the waiting room. And you can see all these portraits of the residents of Canehurst Castle, or Castle Canehurst. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing it. Please forgive me, lore experts. So, we have here, maybe I'll try and use this for some brushing noises. I have here a woman with red hair, a man with blonde hair, a woman here with a crown, close-up portrait of a man with silver hair. And another of a man with silver hair, but he's in armor. We have a man with brown hair. He looks more like an aristocrat rather than a soldier, or like a man of socializing. We have a blonde woman in a dress that very much reminds me of the spirit dress, actually. We have an older lady. We have a woman with red or maybe blonde hair, and then a young man with brown hair. And here we have the knight's attire, male. So this is an off-the-shoulder cape, a grand coat that comes down below the knees, an inner coat, and then whatever this white, I almost want to call it like roughage. I don't know what that would be called, but at the cuffs and around the neck, this white loose fabric, and then boots. And the female knight's attire is very similar, but it features red more prominently, like with these red gloves, and the red skirt, and the red sleeves, and her hair is done up really nicely. So as you proceed through Castle Cainhurst, did I get the name right this time? I think I did. You'll finally reach the rooftop. So you can see here these two spires. And up here is the battleground where you face Martyr Ligarius. This man, or, well, this boss. I guess he's quite far gone in terms of humanity. And he's sitting on this icy throne. And he fights with this big scythe. And a sword. And magic. He fights with everything, basically. So the entire time you're fighting him, these red skulls are kind of bursting from his body, and you have to dodge them as well as dodging his attacks. And he can teleport, of course. It's quite a challenging fight, but it's such a good example of what Bloodborne does right. You know, you're fighting under the moonlight on the roof of this grand castle in the snow. It's just so beautiful. And inside, okay, so this is where Bloodborne gets a little weird. Well, one of the places Bloodborne gets a little weird. So inside you find the Vileblood Queen's chamber, and you can get some Cainhurst armor. But inside the Vileblood Queen's chamber is Annalise, Queen of the Vilebloods. So again, I'm not a Bloodborne lore expert, but it's kind of implied that she, or potentially all of the inhabitants of Castle Cainhurst, are quote-unquote Vilebloods. And it's almost like a reverse vampirism. Like their blood can be consumed in the same way the hunters consume the beast blood. But obviously it has different consequences. Let's see what she says. Very well. Drink deep of our blood. Feel the spreading corruption burn. Now thou art too a vile blood. We too, the very last on this earth. We await thy return for the honor of Cainhurst. And we have here Queen Annalise slumped in her throne, in her dress with her face covered. Okay, now we're getting back into spoiler territory. So I think I'm going to wrap up this video by just flicking through and making some paper sounds. And then we'll catch up quickly at the end. He's very friendly, let's say that. And in the world of Bloodborne, I think that kind of puts you on edge. Oh my goodness, Vicar Amelia. I know I said I was just gonna flip through, but honestly, there's so much I love about Bloodborne. Let's do some brushing on Ebrietas, daughter of the cosmos. Okay. And I'll just gently flip through to the end. Spoilers. So, the last page. We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open. Fear the old blood. And that takes us to the end of the book. So as always, if you made it this far into the video, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this flip through. And if you're watching this the week of Halloween, I hope you have a fantastic time.